The WWF, what the world is watching. Turn it on and rip the knob off.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wrestling Memory Grenade, now at episode 144. And I'm your host, Ray Russell, to bring you the second half of the definitive edition of SummerSlam 1988, the review right here on the Grenade program. Last we left off, the Rougeau brothers made themselves a couple of permanent enemies in the British Bulldogs, plus Bad News Brown scored his biggest victory to date inside the ring over the Olympic strongman Ken Patera. The Powers of Pain continue to dominate the tag team scene, wiping out the Bolsheviks. Brother Love barely escaped with his hide after a run-in with one hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ravishing Rick Rude got a little too cute, exposing once again the tights featuring one Cheryl Roberts on the front and back, leading to Jake the Snake Roberts hitting the ring, running the Ravishing One off after his match with the Junkyard Dog. And last but certainly not least, we have a brand new Intercontinental Champion in the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior Man coming out as the surprise replacement for Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Honky Tonk Man said, "Get somebody out here, I don't care who it is." Well, Honky learned to eat those words in rapid fashion. The Warrior coming out, scoring the win, picking up that victory and the IC title in just 29 seconds, defeating the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion all the way up to Gunther. Honky Tonk can't be happy, and we're actually going to hear from the new champion and the former champion later in this edition of the Grenade. As we continue on now, guys, we head back to the ring, coming out of intermission, right back to SummerSlam 1988. All right, we are rocking. Coming back out of intermission, they go back and play the intro video again, just to remind us later in the evening, it will be the Mega Powers taking on the Mega Bucks. So 5 matches down and 5 to go. And at this point in the Observer, as far as the pay-per-view goes, we have Dave Meltzer complaining that there's only been about 40 minutes of wrestling in the ring in the first hour and a half of the pay-per-view. And half of that was in the opener. Bulldogs and Rougeaus going 20 minutes, remember. Well, Melts, I got to be honest with you. On paper, that does sound like a complaint, but honestly, it's flowed pretty nicely outside of that Brother Love segment. But as we come back, we are reminded that it is Gorilla Monsoon and Superstar Graham on commentary. And they're going to welcome us back here. But they're immediately interrupted by one Bobby the Brain Heenan. High atop the Garden is where the commentary stage is set. Bobby Heenan going to join the guys. He wants to talk a little bit about the Mega Bucks strategy later tonight while pretending to almost fall off the commentary area. Got to give the sight gags to Bobby Heenan. Physical comedy at its best. But Bobby also claims the Mega Powers have apparently put a dresser in front of their dressing room door. They don't want to get to the ring later tonight. At the end of the day, I think this was all ad lib, brought up at the last minute. Me thinks somebody was watching the first half of this show, pal, and sent Bobby Heenan out there to commentary to get the viewers going again. And they're going to need it for this next match as we go to the ring, kicking off the second half of SummerSlam. It's The Rock, Don Muraco, taking on Canadian strongman Dino Bravo with Frenchie Martin. So post-intermission, and this is what you come back with? This is going to get people back in their seats? I don't know. So the Dino Bravo Ken Patera feud seems to have finally run its course. Thank God. And Dino Bravo going to move on from that. Meanwhile, Don Muraco, he's been feuding with Greg the Hammer Valentine after the Hammer used his new shin guard, the Heartbreaker, to cripple Muraco's manager, Superstar Graham, who is now a mere color commentator. So, of course, it only makes sense to put Muraco in here with Dino Bravo instead of Valentine. Now, honestly, you can switch my interest in either of those matches one way or the other without any real change, but let's face it, Valentine would have easily made the better match here. However, Vince McMahon's inexplicable love for Dino Bravo on our TV screens continues on as the Canadian strongman looks for revenge after being eliminated in the first round of the WWF title tournament at WrestleMania 4 against The Rock. Okay, A, Dino did it to himself, the elimination at WrestleMania 4, and B, I'm just creating a revenge story here to make this match have some form of heat going in. In reality, they don't mention that at all here, nor does anyone remember it. We've blocked it all out of our minds, so I guess you guys can thank me for bringing it back to the forefront. Sorry, guys. Muraco out first here for whatever reason, out in tie-dye, doing his former manager, the Superstar, proud here, Rock looking larger than ever in the upper body, as Dino Bravo then out with Frenchie Martin by his side, as we are once again reminded that USA is not okay. But let us not forget that Bobby Heenan now on commentary, at least for the short term. Looks like Vince and crew were listening to the first half of the show. So Gorilla's struggling out there with Superstar Graham on color. Thank God Bobby Heenan out here, at least for one match, to help save the program. As the Superstar Graham, of course, going to bring up the bench press contest going back to the Royal Rumble all the way back in January, vowing that Don Muraco is actually the stronger of the two men in the ring. Just give him a legit contest, says the Superstar, and Muraco can prove it. Thankfully, they never go that far. As the match going to get going, we see some flexing from both men to start. Surprising leapfrog in the air by Dino Bravo leads to Muraco landing a pair of arm drags to send Bravo outside to regroup. And I don't know how you defy the law of gravity, but Bravo made that leapfrog look like it was in slow motion. Finally back inside, Bravo hilariously jumps sideways into an arm drag that Don didn't even throw yet. It was as funny as it was embarrassing. Go check it out, guys. Bravo then reversing a whip into the corner, takes over with an inverted atomic drop, followed by a series of elbow drops, gonna net Dino only a 1 count as Muraco makes the comeback with a Russian leg sweep, and both of these guys already starting to suck wind after doing next to nothing. And it is very obvious, by the way, Gorilla Monsoon even having to state on commentary that the men have extended themselves and we're not even 4 minutes into the match. Muraco gonna deliver a backdrop and then calls for his finisher, the Tombstone. But Frenchie Martin up on the apron to run distraction. The Rock, however, blasting Martin off the apron, going for a scoop slam on Dino now, but Bravo's feet inadvertently kicked the referee, Tim White here, knocking him down just for a moment. The incident, though, allows Bravo to slide behind Muraco and deliver his patented side suplex just to score the 1, 2, 3. Dino Bravo pinning Don Muraco, 5 minutes and 29 seconds. Wow. I expected this to be not very good, but Muraco, he can usually deliver for at least a few minutes before he blows up. And even Don was out of gas a couple minutes into this one. And while it was too short to be atrocious, it was still not very good at all. Dino scoring the win to move up the ranks, as this also marks the end of Don Muraco's pay-per-view appearances here in the World Wrestling Federation. Don going to be here maybe another 2 months tops. As we go off now, we head backstage to Sean Mooney standing by with the Mega Ref. Here he is, Jesse Ventura.
Standing next to me right now is the man handpicked by World Wrestling Federation President Jack Tunney to be the special guest referee in this bout involving the Mega Powers as they take on the Mega Bucks. a lot of controversy surrounding this decision. And Jesse, you have added to this controversy by accepting money from the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
First of all, let me say this, Moody. This is the first good decision President Jack Tunney has ever made, in my opinion, because I'm the only man searching worldwide who could step into this ring and take care of a match of this magnitude. Now, you're accusing me of accepting money from the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase? Well, are you a fool? Huh? Well, let me add it. Yeah, you saw it. He walks up, he stuffs $100 bills in my jacket. Hey, if somebody wants to give me money, I'm no fool. I'm going to take the money.
Well, we all await the actions of Jesse the Body Ventura.
All right, so the Body, Jesse Ventura, puts over Jack Tunney, President Jack Tunney's first good decision here in the WWF by making him the referee of the main event. Sean Mooney then pointing out, Jesse, you accepted money from the $1 Million Man recently on an episode of the Brother Love Show. Ventura admitting,
yeah, I took the money.
He did indeed take DiBiase's money, but there was no discussion to be had. He simply took the money. He simply stuffed money in his pocket. What was he supposed to do? Turn him down?
Would you turn that down, Mooney?
So Ventura's saying, yeah, I took some free cash, but there was no discussion. The Body's still vowing he has not been bought off by the $1 Million Man. I guess we'll just have to wait and see as we go back to the ring for WWF Tag Team title action, as we see the champions Demolition with Mr. Fuji and Jimmy Hart in their corner. They're going to be taking on the former champs, the Hart Foundation, and Bret Hart, Jim Neidhart, former tag team champions themselves. Remember, they lost the titles last October to Strikeforce. Demolition, the current champions, defeated that very team, Strikeforce, to win the titles at WrestleMania 4. And to take it one step further, the Demos recently injured or maimed Rick Martel in a rematch earlier this summer, dismantling Strikeforce perhaps once and for all. And that's going to give Demolition the argument that they're the better team than the Hart Foundation. Hey, we didn't just beat the team that beat you, we put them out of action. And again, going back all the way to WrestleMania 4, the Hitman, last man eliminated in the Battle Royal by that lousy, no-good double cross, Bad News Brown. And after the pay-per-view, the Harts would seem to go solo, go their separate ways amicably. As the Hitman working matches on TV, the Anvil relegated to the house show duty. We would hear promos from both men, however, denouncing Jimmy Hart as their manager. They didn't need him for their successes. Jimmy would still pop up, though, ringside for some of their matches, only to be shooed and even chased away. Jimmy Hart claimed there was no major issue within the Hart Foundation, baby, and they'd all work it out in the end. But that eventually led to Jimmy accepting the fact that he was no longer wanted in the corner of the Harts. Jimmy finally accepting that fate, but pointing out that he was still legally the team's manager. But as weeks progressed, manager Jimmy became more and more embarrassed by his dismissal from his former tag team, claiming to be the reason the Harts were ever tag team champions to begin with. Which was kind of true. I mean, he did hit Dynamite with the megaphone. Anyway, eventually Jimmy Hart vowing revenge and swearing the Hart Foundation would never be tag team champions again if he had anything to say about it. Now, let's rewind just a little bit one more time. Past WrestleMania 4, Neidhart continuing to work the house shows as a solo act, but also as a heel, working the likes of Lanny Poffo, Sam Houston, some of the undercard baby faces. Meanwhile, the Hitman getting a new singles run on TV at that time, even on the cover of one of the monthly WWF magazines. Bret Hart quickly getting over with the fans, perceived as a babyface, but still working a little heel in the ring. And after 3 months of working Bad News Brown and revenge matches on the house shows, by July of 1988, the WWF called an audible. Bret Hart was executing excellently in the ring. He was getting his dose of cheers, but they just didn't see whatever they were looking for in him for a singles push right now. And by July, they began putting the Hart Foundation back together as a unit. TV matches began airing of the duo, teaming once again. It appeared now as a spot as baby faces. But the only problem was, the Harts were only working against other baby faces in the ring, and working heel to boot. Their style still very much a heel team. seemed to really confuse the fans who wanted to cheer for the Harts, but they weren't really sure. Were they baby faces or weren't they? But the Harts coming into their own as good guys now in the month of August as their business manager, Jimmy Hart, or maybe a better word now would be agent, stealing a percentage of their money. Jimmy Hart will try and make right with his vow tonight to prevent the Hart Foundation from regaining the gold here at SummerSlam, as Jimmy announced a few weeks back that he would indeed act as a advisor to Mr. Fuji and Demolition for the match here tonight at the pay-per-view. So Jimmy, a co-manager, if you will, as he promises to expose all of the former team's weaknesses to Master Fuji and the Demos. And we've already seen one title change tonight, guys. Will it be two? Both teams in the ring and the bell sounds. Axe gonna hammer down on the Hitman to start, but the Demos get cocky and Brett battling back, rocking Axe, even drilling Smash on the apron. Waking up the Smasher, Brett gonna deliver a reverse rolling cradle on Axe, gonna get a 2 count early on. Then in comes Smash, and also in comes the Big Anvil. Neidhart planting Smash with a forearm, right across the chest that would drop a normal man to his knees. And as the action continues on in the ring, we're shown a shot of the meeting of the minds on the floor. Mr. Fuji and Jimmy Hart talking it over. That cannot be good. Referee Joey Morella gonna miss it when the Anvil runs the ropes and Axe with a big kick to the back of the Anvil's head. Great agility there by Bill Eadie. Axe jumping up in the air, kicking the Anvil in the back of the head as he hits the ropes, and the Demos will take control. It's from there the double axe handle clubberings from the Demos on the Anvil, but Smash telegraphing a backdrop. Anvil gonna lower the boom, tag back to partner the Hitman. And Brett in cleaning house, even landing a drop kick on Smash, but Smash reversing an Irish whip into the corner. And with the ref distracted yet again, Fuji going to hang his cane on the corner buckle. And as Brett goes charging in, he goes shoulder first through the cane in a great little spot there. And now Bret Hart selling that injured arm, as you might imagine. The Demo's going to take over. Neidhart, though, he's seen enough, running Jimmy Hart off to the locker room. So it appears, at least for now, we're down to one manager here, Mr. Fuji, still ringside. But the Hitman hurt as the champs wisely working over that injured shoulder of Bret Hart. Shoulder breaker by Smash and a spinning arm lock. We've seen spinning toe holds. Well, picture a spinning toe hold on an arm, and that's what Smash is doing here to the Hitman. Really good wrestling skills from Smash. Guess he learned a couple things from Uncle Ivan over in JCP. Bret Hart then dumped outside and sent shoulder first into the steel post to further do some damage on the Hitman. Finally, Hart able to duck an axe clothesline and catch the champion on the rebound with a sit-out clothesline of his own. So picture the heart attack maneuver minus the Anvil's part in it. Hitman running off the ropes, hitting a sit-out clothesline, taking Axe down, and then Bret makes that slow crawl over to his corner, but Smash distracting the referee for the third time in the match. Joey Morella missing the hot tag to the Anvil. Smash, though, charging into a Bret Hart knee in the corner, and this time the ref does see the hot tag as in comes Jim Neidhart, standing drop kick on Axe, slams both of the champions. Clothesline gonna wipe Smash straight out of the ring, and the crowd going nuts as the Hart Foundation on the rebound. Demolition got to regroup on the floor, and that's when the unthinkable happens. The Hitman on the apron, the Anvil in the ring, and Smash on the outside. The Hitman going to slingshot his own partner, Jim Neidhart, with a flying slingshot plancha over the top rope, out to the floor onto Demolition Smash. You need a guy that size to catch someone the size of the Anvil, but holy shit, what a move for the times by a guy the Anvil's size, no less. So impressive. We weren't seeing slingshot planchas by anyone in the WWF at this point, and it's Jim Neidhart, the 300-plus pounder, doing the maneuver here, and it's got the garden rocking. As back in the ring, Neidhart with his patented power slam, the Anvilizer smashing Smash into the mat. Gonna get the 1, 2, but Smasher kicks out. Even the Anvil surprised. Hell, I was surprised. And I knew that wasn't the finish. Bret Hart gonna tag back in, whipping his own partner, the Anvil, into Smash for some added leverage and a flying tackle Down goes Smash, and Bret Hart going to make the cover. 1, 2, nope, the Demolition, showing some true grit here. Smash going to kick out yet again, but Bret with a backbreaker on Smash, laying him out, as Axe going to break that pin up, and it turns into a 4-way melee. Mr. Fuji now on the apron as well. The Anvil going after Fuji, landing several shots on the manager, distracting Joey Marella. You heard it, guys. Now for the 4th time in the match. You want to talk about a referee that was paid off. Meanwhile, the Hitman going for his singles finisher, the pile driver on Demolition Smash. But with the referee tied up with Fuji and the Anvil, it's Jimmy Hart rushing back to ringside. Jimmy Hart returns, tossing his megaphone into Demolition Axe, who blasts Bret from behind. And down goes the Hitman. Smash gonna fall on top to make the cover and steal the 1, 2, 3. Match gonna go 10 minutes, 47 seconds. Demolition will retain the titles, all by the help of Jimmy Hart. And speaking of Jimmy taking off like a thief in the night after he makes sure the damage is done, his promise comes true as he made sure the Harts did not leave MSG with the tag team titles. Demolition retain, but looking worse for wear, I assure you. The Anvil inside the ring checking on the down Hitman, not sure what happened here. As we go back and we see a new replay from a different camera angle out on the floor, a much better camera angle. So we see a cameraman apparently somehow just happened to know to point the camera at the backstage area. As seconds later, we see Jimmy Hart emerge through the curtains, run out, toss Axe the megaphone, and the rest, as they say, was history. Demolition will retain. Now the match, again, would have been nice to see a little more on the side of the high spots. Not asking for anything crazy here, but some more creative stuff would have been nice throughout the match. But the bout itself, it made sense on paper. But Demolition working a body part on the Hitman didn't leave a whole lot of time to do a whole lot of anything else during the heat. Now let's talk about the Anvil for a second. Impressive in spurts here. Standing dropkick, slingshot dive out to the floor, just awesome to see every time. And at the end of the day, this won't be the last time we see these two teams meet for the titles. At a SummerSlam, for that matter. But that's another story for another day. As we go off to see yet another ad for the upcoming Sugar Ray Leonard Donnie Lalonde fight, coming to you November 7th, live right here on pay-per-view. And right now we go backstage one more time. Mean Gene Okerlund standing by with a dejected former Intercontinental Champion, the Honky Tonk Man, and manager, Jimmy Hart.
All right, I'm back in the locker room with the former Intercontinental Champion, the Honky Tonk Man. Doubly disappointing for him tonight. No Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and then losing the Intercontinental title to the Ultimate Warrior.
Leave me alone! I've been ripped off, I've been robbed. Ever since I've been in the WWF, they've tried to do something like this to me. They jumped me from behind. They beat me up out there with some warrior. I said I'd wrestle anybody, but I didn't say I'd wrestle a warrior. No, but they send a warrior out there. They send somebody out there. That's my belt. The belt belongs to me. I'm the greatest of all time. I'll always be the greatest of all time. And I don't care what you do, warrior. That's my belt. The belt belongs to me, Gene. It's mine. I've held it longer than anybody, and I'm going to get it back. If it's the last thing I do in the WWF, I'm going to get my belt back. It's my belt.
At the risk of sounding negative, Honky Tonk Man, I think you walked into this building a little overconfident tonight. A veritable zoo back in the locker room, but in the meantime, there's action in the garden. Let's go back to Gorilla and the Superstar.
So back to the locker room, not the interview area, but the locker room. Very important there. We see the Honky Tonk Man there. We see the Bolsheviks, the Rougeaus, trying to console Honky in the promo that clearly had to have taken place right after the title loss. Honky Tonk still halfway in his jumpsuit there, as he says he offered to take on anyone, but that didn't include the Ultimate Warrior. Classic Hill verbiage. Honky says he wants his title back, and if it's the last thing he does, he will get back the IC strap. So Honky Tonk, as you might imagine, not too happy after a 15-16 month run with the belt, loses the title in just 29 seconds flat to the Ultimate Warrior. Revenge on Honky's mind, getting that belt back. Number one on the hit list of the Honky Tonk Man right now. And where does this all leave Brutus the Barber Beefcake? We'll have to wait and see in the weeks and months to come here on the Grenade as 1988 goes on. But right now, we continue on with SummerSlam 88, back to the ring for the Big Boss Man, with manager Slick taking on the Birdman, Koko B. Ware. And the Boss Man, he's been here for a short spell now, maybe 3 months or so, and he has forced everyone to take notice as he is both brutal with his instruments of justice, but also without them, dominating his opponents, and he hasn't been defeated yet. Been beating down the competition, literally. And I am loving the slow build of the former prison guard from Cobb County, Georgia, wiping out the job guys in the squashes on TV, being fed guys like Scott Casey and Sam Houston on the house shows. And now, Koko B. Ware, he makes the obvious next step in feeding to the Big Boss Man. I guess you could call the Birdman bird feed here tonight. Sorry. Meanwhile, on the other end, Koko B. Ware hasn't done a whole lot that's been very meaningful since singing Pile Driver last year, unless you count those awesome Ghostbusters. So again, no story here for this match, but should be fun at the very least as we see the Boss Man and Slick in the ring, the Birdman out to his Pile Driver theme, along with the macaw Frankie by his side. Slick going to distract Koko right out of the gate so the Boss Man can attack, clobbering Ware and pitching him to the arena floor, but Koko finally back inside, making a quick comeback. Series of right hands and a dropkick sends the Boss Man staggering back, and the former prison guard finds himself, his arms caught in the ropes. Ware then going to launch himself at a tied-up Boss Man in a vertical splash of sorts, kind of like a stinger splash to a man caught in the ropes. Cool spot if you go back and check it out. Boss Man gonna sell the move, but he finally gets free, takes right back over on the offense, landing a corner splash of his own. I should note that the Big Boss Man still wearing his handcuffs for the matchup as he clotheslines Koko's head off and goes down to make the cover, but he actually pulls Ware up at the count of 2. We're doing this already? Boss Man essentially saying, yeah, I could have beat the Birdman a couple minutes in, but what's the fun in that? Meanwhile, we get a surfboard-style stretch by the former prison guard here, but Koko gonna get back to his feet, flip through it, and kick his way free. But Ware cannot capitalize as Boss Man gonna land his leg straddle to the back of Ware's head across that middle rope. Patented Boss Man move there. And then the Big Boss Man slamming Ware down and going to the top rope. It appears the Big Boss Man looking for a top rope splash. Gonna flatten the Birdman. But as the former prison guard leaps off, it's Koko Ware out of the way. Boss Man actually, technically, landing feet first before falling down to the splash, but either way, he does miss the big splash coming off the top rope, yet somehow, Boss Man gonna no-sell the missed maneuver, and then, follow that up, he's going to miss a corner splash. Koko evading the Boss Man's running charge in the corner, Boss Man leaping up in the air, crotches himself across the top rope as Koko finally back on top, floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, Koko with a series of jabs, and a top rope missile drop kick, nearly taking the Boss Man's head off. Awesome spot there. Koko on the money, per the usual. As Ware then, with a big running splash, Koko hitting the ropes and hitting one of those warrior-style splashes. High elevation in the air, but the size difference doesn't make it too effective, now does it? The much smaller Birdman coming off the ropes with a big splash of the Boss Man, only going to net himself a 2 count, but it was still a sight to see. Koko, though, going to try for, it looks like maybe a Hurricane Rana over in the corner, but Boss Man doesn't really get Ware up good on his neck area, and it looks like Boss Man was maybe supposed to turn it into kind of a hot shot, drop Koko face first into the corner buckle. I'm just guessing here, but instead, Ware gets dumped over the top rope and falls out to the apron. Kind of an awkward spot overall. Not really sure what was supposed to happen there 100%, but Koko gonna crawl back inside where he's hit with the Boss Man Slam. Gonna give the former prison guard the win. Big Boss Man going over here, 5 minutes, 55 seconds, and then post-match, the Slickster gonna distract the referee Hebner just long enough for the Boss Man to take one good swipe into the ribcage of Koko with his nightstick. So no big beatdown, no handcuffing, no beatdown of the nightstick, but Boss Man still managing to get a shot in. Now, due to some of these sloppy spots here in this matchup, the story goes, supposedly, by the time he got back to the locker room, Koko B. Ware was pissed off, even attacking a locker. None too happy was the Birdman, who finally got his time to shine here on pay-per-view, and I guess he didn't want to take it out on the 400-plus pound boss man, Koko taking it out on a locker or two. Overall, the match was okay, but no doubt a couple of mistimed spots. Nevertheless, the new talent continues to shine here in 1988. It's all about building new stars. We saw Bad News Brown pick up a clean win over Ken Patera, which didn't really happen a whole lot for heels back then, especially televised. We also saw the Powers of Pain dominate here earlier. We witnessed the Ultimate Warrior grab his first piece of WWF Gold, and they continue in that fashion with their next big thing as a heel here, the Big Boss Man, picking up a victory in definitive fashion. As we continue on, we get the Survivor Series promo for at least the third, maybe the fourth time on the program. Then we head backstage to Sean Mooney standing by with the brand new Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior.
It is a different story here in the locker room of the Ultimate Warrior, the new Intercontinental Champion. And Warrior, you are now a champion of the World Wrestling
Honky Tonk, man, you thought it was something like out of a comic book, brother. But we're talking about real life. I was sitting in parts unknown, waiting for the next spaceship to hire planes, and the lightning bolts came down from the skies, and the Warrior spoke, and they said, make it to the garden. Well, the Ultimate Warrior showed, and Honky Tonk Man, you gave the challenge, and the Ultimate Warrior and the little warriors with all the painted faces rose to the challenge, and they conquered. I'm taking all the little warriors through all the darkness and all the pain, and Honky Tonk Man, if you want a piece of me, or anybody thinks they can take on all the warriors, I'm not hard to find. I'll be on the next spaceship to parts on. No!
Well, the new Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior. Big days ahead for him. And right now, let's go back to superstar Billy Graham and Gorilla Monsoon.
Well, there it was, Warrior Man, in a celebration interview of sorts in the Good Guy locker room. We see guys like Junkyard Dog, Don Muraco, the Bulldogs, Hacksaw Duggan, and Ken Patera congratulating Warrior on his accomplishment, defeating the Honky Tonk Man, and in record time. And this was clearly also taped right after their IC title match, the Warrior still pouring sweat, as UW talking lightning bolts and spaceships, and the other baby faces slowly disappear from the interview. Kind of funny timing there, eh? The look on JYD's face during the Warrior promo said it all for me, but the Ultimate Warrior, the new IC champ, and we learned that apparently Parts Unknown is on another planet, which explains a lot.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com, and to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to USWAPodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met. from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. And of course, now would be a fantastic time to become a WrestleCopia patron over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, where you get so many gifts, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Regional Wrestling, and the Monday Warfare podcast. You'll also get early access to a lot of the podcasts here on the WrestleCopia brand, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. But that's still not all, guys. You also get at least a dozen digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure each and every month, plus random bonus video drops, and of course, the Patreon exclusive watch-along series covering many past WWF and WCW events. And if that's not all, videocasts, also now a part of Patreon. No subscription, cancel anytime. Give it a try for a month, guys. I think you'll like the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia. Help me pay some of the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the great shows here up and running for the months and the years to come.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
As we go back to the ring for our penultimate match here on SummerSlam, gonna see Jake the Snake Roberts take on the mighty Hercules. And we touched on this one earlier in the Rick Rude match versus Junkyard Dog. Now, supposedly, Bobby Heenan, he booked this match between Snake and Herc to prevent Roberts from getting a match against Rick Rude. Now, of course, that didn't stop the Snake Man from attacking Rude earlier here during his match with the Dog. Rude exposing that second pair of tights with Cheryl underneath, and that's all it took for the Snake Man to hit the ring and send Rude packing. Something tells me they're not done with that feud just yet. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the ring here, it's Hercules, who is apparently now mighty, the mighty Hercules, though he hasn't really been seen on TV since losing to the Warrior at WrestleMania 4, save for a couple of matches on primetime. But don't worry, Hercules fans. There's new life for the Mighty One on the horizon. Hang in there. And speaking of which, it becomes obvious quickly that there is no Bobby Heenan ringside during the introductions. Hercules posing with his chains, but the Brain apparently too busy with the upcoming main event to be bothered with accompanying Hercules here. Of course, the main event following this matchup, so Bobby just couldn't be bothered to show up here, which is foreshadowing things to come. And Herc going to try an attack on Jake, but the Snake Man going to dodge and land a series of jabs here. Roberts rushing into the corner, but runs right into a high knee from Hercules. And then the Mighty One, though, going to telegraph a backdrop, and Snake countering with his patented knee lift. Wow, right out of the gate, Snake looking to end this thing quickly, signaling for his DDT. But Hercules wisely bails out to the floor. Then back inside, Snake going to maintain control, working a side headlock. Hercules attempting to counter with a back suplex, but Roberts going to hold on to the headlock straight through the move. Hercules, though, able to lure Jake into the corner and deliver a headbutt into the gut area, then landing a pair of mighty elbow drops to take Roberts down and out. And then from there, an awesome Herculean clothesline gets a near fall as Herc fails to hook the leg. Gotta hook the leg, Jess. Hercules remains on top as it's chinlock time from the former Hernandez. And that move going to go on for a bit. Jake finally working his way up to his feet, but eats a back elbow from Herc that sends the Snake Man back outside to the floor. Hercules hammering away on Roberts, who's now out on the apron trying to get back in the ring, until Jake finally reaches in, grabbing Hercules by his head and snap-marrying the Mighty One over the top rope and out to the floor. Fun spot there from the Snake Man. Is Jake going to try to bring Hercules back inside, but Herc dropping Jake throat first across the top rope to regain control. Briefly anyway, is Jake going to counter a reverse chinlock attempt with a jawbreaker and fire back with a series of his patented snake jabs one more time, and this time going to drop the Mighty One to the mat. Jake then with the short arm clothesline, which is usually the setup for, you know it guys, the crowd getting loud, begging to see it as Jake sets up for the DDT. But Hercules going to counter out with a backdrop. However, it's the Snake who is up first to his feet, trying for a running knee lift across the ring, but Hercules going to sidestep, sending Jake upside down, landing on his external occipital protuberance. You know, the little bump on the back of your head. And Hernandez back on the offense, looking for a scoop slam, but Jake going to slide over, Herc turning around right into it, DDT out of nowhere. Hercules down, and he looks to be out cold. The Snake Man reaching over, making the cover, and getting the win. Match goes 10 minutes and 8 seconds. Hercules out like a light as Damien comes out of the bag, laid across the chest of the Mighty One. Jake picks up a definitive victory here over a solid heel in the mighty Hercules. And we saw Jake earlier seeking revenge on Rick Rude. He had to settle for another member of the Heenan family here tonight in Hercules. This would have been a perfect match for TV. Would have been great for, say, a Saturday night's main event. Now, not a whole lot, again, high spot-wise in this one. Long chin lock in the middle of the matchup. But fans were just happy we got to see the DDT. And overall, we got a pinfall finish to end the match. Jake Roberts putting away another member of the Heenan family as he guns for ravishing Rick Rude.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
And that will bring us to the main event. It all comes down to this, the Mega Powers. That's the WWF champion Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan making his return here, accompanied by their lovely manager, Elizabeth. They're going to be taking on the Mega Bucks of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant, accompanied by bodyguard Virgil and manager Bobby the Brain Heenan. And let us not forget our guest referee, one Jesse the Body, that's Mega Ref Ventura, here tonight, the Mega Ref Jesse Ventura. As the backstory here can honestly go back to January 1987, the Hulk-Andre feud into WrestleMania 3. Andre's return to continue said feud at Survivor Series 87. Of course, in the middle of all of that, Ted DiBiase debuting with the WWF and wanting to purchase the heavyweight title from the then champion, the Hulkster. Of course, we get the epic answer, hell no! And DiBiase then purchasing the services of Andre the Giant to defeat Hulk Hogan at the main event back in February of this year, 1988. And after some Twin Hebner shenanigans, Andre crowned the new WWF tag team, make that heavyweight champion. But the Giant immediately going to sell that title to the $1 Million Man. However, Ted DiBiase would soon learn, courtesy of WWF President Jack Tunney, that you cannot purchase the WWF Championship. And thus, since Andre surrendered the belt to DiBiase, the title was declared vacant, pending a single elimination tournament at WrestleMania 4. And during the quarterfinals of said tournament, we would learn that DiBiase again paid Andre to eliminate the Hulkster. A double disqualification would eliminate both Hulk and Andre from the tournament, giving DiBiase a bye through the semifinals straight into the finals, where he would wind up meeting the Macho Man Randy Savage. And Macho ultimately walking out with the gold that night. DiBiase using Andre in his corner to outnumber Mach during the finals. Savage would send Elizabeth to the locker room and summon Hulk Hogan to even the odds. And tit for tat, Hulkster blasting DiBiase with a chair, allowing Savage to land that flying patented elbow drop to get the win and become the undisputed WWF champion. If you've been following the Grenade at all, you know DiBiase has been chasing Savage ever since for that gold. Angles ran on TV to keep the heat going for return matches in most cities over the course of the past 4-5 months. And then the feud intensified even more when DiBiase brought Andre back with him during a recent interview with Randy Savage, the two heels attacking and choking the life out of the champion, leaving him laying at the feet of Elizabeth. Savage, though, he didn't take it lightly, challenging the heels to a tag team match. DiBiase and Andre versus Macho Man and a mystery partner, should the heels accept, which they did, leading to Savage announcing the returning Hulk Hogan as his partner. The Mega Powers reunite as Hogan returning from filming No Holds Barred. The heels didn't act surprised, claiming they expected it to be Hulk all along. Actually, the heels looking forward to getting revenge on both Macho and Hogan once and for all, right here at SummerSlam. So the match announced for the pay-per-view, almost everything in place, except the question of who could referee a match of this magnitude. The Mega Powers versus the heels, now calling themselves the Mega Bucks. Who could handle all of these mega stars but a mega referee in one Jesse the Body Ventura? Jesse promising to call it down the middle, stating that he had made enough money in Hollywood that he can't be bought by the $1 Million Man, and he was never intimidated by the likes of a Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant. Jesse claiming to have no favorites in this one, and maybe he didn't initially, until this past week, the Brother Love Show, Jesse Ventura as guest, promoting his integrity as referee for the matchup. That is until the Mega Bucks unit arrived on set and DiBiase began stuffing $100 bills into the inside pocket of Jesse Ventura. And as he did so, a giant smile overcame the body, implying that, well, the Mega Powers could be in for mega trouble here tonight. And lost in all of that, the Mega Powers perhaps foreshadowing things to come in some of their interviews, mentioning that Lady Luck herself, the Mega Manager, Miss Elizabeth, would be wearing a very revealing itsy bitsy teeny weeny string bikini at the pay-per-view. The not so secret weapon referenced earlier here in a promo as well on the pay-per-view. Meltzer even stating in The Observer the WWF using this teaser of the bikini as a way to add buys, last-minute buys, to the pay-per-view itself. But we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out as we get going. Out first is the guest referee, the Mega Ref, Jesse the Body Ventura, in non-referee looking attire, but I would expect nothing less from the Body. Out next, the entire heel unit. And of course, that is followed by the Mega Powers and the lovely Elizabeth. All three of them decked out in red and yellow, the Mega Powers in matching yellow trunks. And Elizabeth, well, that's not a bikini, but it is a lovely yellow dress. And all three entering to the Macho Man's tune. How kind of you, Hulk. Elizabeth looking hotter than ever in a lovely number, complete with a yellow mini skirt attached. Mega referee Jesse Ventura warning everyone as they enter the ring that he's the boss here tonight and they all better adhere. Jesse then going to switch the corners of the ring where the tag ropes are placed. Well, that's different. I guess Jesse just trying to prove his power out here. The Body going to exchange a few words with Hulk Hogan, getting Hulk and DiBiase onto the apron before he finally calls for the bell, and we're off. It appears we're going to start with the WWF champion Randy Savage and Andre the Giant. But that's only going to last for a second, just long enough for the Giant to take Savage down and tag out to the $1 Million Man. But the mind games continue as Teddy enters the ring. He wants Hulk Hogan. And the Macho Man obliges, tagging the Hulkster in and the crowd going nuts. It's the televised return of Hulk Hogan to the wrestling ring. Not since a matchup with Boris Zukov on Superstars dating back to, was it early May? It's been a while. As Gorilla Monsoon going to reuse the happening and cut it with the knife lines. For this encounter, the Mega Powers going to have their way with Ted DiBiase early on, running elbow from the Hulkster, and then the Mega Powers with some double teaming as Jesse Ventura making the 4 counts, keeping it legal in the ring. Savage going to make a cover, though Ventura kind of slow to get down there. As long as it's consistent, Jesse. But the Macho Man, paranoid as always, questioning the body's slow count, as are the fans. But the baby faces continue on the offense. Double big boot by the Mega Powers. Again, Jesse with a slightly slow count here allows DiBiase to kick free. But the Hulkster in the ring, rapid fire elbow drops on Teddy as Andre going to attack from behind, which draws the lovely Miss Elizabeth up onto the apron. And Ventura becoming distracted by Liz. And with his back turned, the heel's going to double team and take over on the Hulkster. Andre with a series of butt drops over by the ropes as we hear loud Hogan chants begin from the crowd. Andre locks in the dreaded trapezius nerve hold of doom here as Macho losing his cool finally trying to jump in the ring only to distract Jesse Ventura once again, and that's done long enough for Andre to choke Hulk out with his singlet strap. And then DiBiase coming in to take over. The heels on top of the Hulkster. Macho Man wants to get in that ring as we see a series of $1 million fist drops and gets Ted DiBiase a 2 count here. DiBiase then going to work a chin lock, which Hulk eventually escapes. But the 2-man trying for the same move at the same time, leading to a double clothesline. And both the Hulkster and DiBiase down on the mat. But Hogan able to tag out first to the Macho Man. The WWF champion in all over Ted DiBiase. The running neck snap across the top rope. Savage leaping over out to the floor, dropping DiBiase across the top rope. Awesome backflip bump as always from Teddy here. Is Macho going to go straight up top, back inside with the flying double axe handle. And DiBiase in all sorts of trouble now. Macho Man going to charge into the corner, but the $1 Million Man sidestepping and the champion crashing hard into the turnbuckles. Savage, however, able to come back with a running crossbody, but then eats a DiBiase left-armed clothesline, and the champion back down. The heels will take over as Andre the Giant tags in. Mach. The Giant crushing Savage in the corner with his giant ass, smashing Savage in the chest, and then on his face down in the corner, the Giant sitting on Savage, the original stink face, ladies and gentlemen. DiBiase back in, landing a textbook suplex. Gonna get a 2 count. Also a backbreaker from the $1 Million Man, setting Macho up for that patented falling back elbow of DiBiase's off the middle rope. Let's not forget, the $1 Million Man was using this as his finisher before debuting the $1 Million Dream back around WrestleMania 4. So DiBiase up to the middle rope, gonna fall backwards with the elbow, but the Macho Man out of the way, Ted missing and taking another backflip bump, as only he can do. Then Savage gonna fight his way over, and finally, it's hot tag time to the Hulkster. And he comes in, Hulk Hogan in, rocking DiBiase on the offense. Hogan even landing a suplex. Talk about a house of fire. Andre, though, gonna come in to make the save, but a big clothesline from the Hulkster, gonna rock the Giant, sending him down. Andre taking a bump, and the crowd erupts. As you can imagine, Savage then gonna rush in up to the top rope, looking for his diving elbow on the downed Giant, while the Hulkster locks in a sleeper hold on Ted DiBiase. Must be doing it for Brother Brudot, dude. So Hogan has DiBiase in a sleeper hold. Meanwhile, Savage going to leap off onto Andre with the diving elbow. And as Savage does leap off, he lands on top of a giant boot. Andre extending his leg up in the air. Savage leaps down into the boot and then takes a tremendous bump out to the floor. So Savage now down and out on the outside. Andre getting back to his feet from behind, grabbing the Hulkster by the back of his hair, where else can you grab it by, and drilling headbutts into the back of the Hulkster's head, and then pitching Hogan out through the ropes right outside next to the downed Macho Man. Both of the Mega Powers out on the floor as the Mega Bucks tell Jesse Ventura to count him out. Not sure what the point of that type of victory would be, but okay. So both Mega Powers down and out on the arena floor when Miss Elizabeth climbs up onto the apron. Wait, what is she doing? Elizabeth on the apron, which in turn brings Bobby Heenan and Virgil onto the opposite side of the ring apron. The heel manager bodyguard instructing Jesse Ventura to make her get down, make Elizabeth get off the apron. And Ventura walking over, ordering Liz to get down, get off the ring. The heel's adamant in wanting Liz off that apron as the Mega Powers shown still down and out on the floor, and Jesse Ventura, the Mega Ref, distracted by the entire ordeal, and thus has yet to make the count. He can't count the Mega Powers out because he's too busy dealing with all of these managers. And then it happens. The secret weapon. Elizabeth removes her skirt, and as promised, sort of, Liz in some skippy red panties, bikini bottoms, and the crowd goes absolutely nuts. The heels all distracted, including the Mega Referee. Nobody knows what to do as Elizabeth back and forth on the apron in those high heels, showing off the nicely tanned lower extremities. Meanwhile, the camera capturing the Mega Powers on the other side, collecting themselves with a Mega Power handshake out on the floor, and Hulk and Macho begin to help each other up. And the heels in the ring with their backs turned to the Mega Powers, still gazing at the lovely Liz. Savage going to use this opportunity, climb to the top rope, dive off, double axe handle into the back between the shoulder blades of Andre the Giant, sending the Giant tumbling over the top rope and out to the floor. Macho then blasting Virgil and Heenan off the apron as well as the Hulkster slamming Ted DiBiase in place and stepping on the throat of the $1 Million Man, holding him down for the Macho Man's patented flying elbow, which connects, and as soon as it does, immediately thereafter Hogan following it up, hitting the ropes for the big leg drop. And the Hulkster making the cover as Ventura reluctantly goes down. He's going to make the 1, 2, Jesse's arm stuck in the air, but the Macho Man rushing over, shoving it down to the mat. 3, it is 3, the Mega Powers get the mega win here. 14 minutes and 49 seconds. And Jesse Ventura back up on his feet, backing up in disbelief. Somehow the heroes defied all odds. They overcame everything and got the win, as promised, with the secret weapon, the kiss of death, the lovely Elizabeth. And immediately after the finish, Savage outside the ring for just a moment. So Hulk going into full celebration mode in the ring on his own, picking up and hugging Elizabeth with one arm, holding her off her feet. Macho Man gonna re-enter the ring as Liz rushes over to hug Randy, who has his arms wide open, but rather than embracing Liz, he just has his arms wide open. What was that, Hulk then gonna walk over, raise the hand of the Macho Man, who simply shoots Hogan a very questionable look. Lust in the eyes, Planting some mega seeds here, no doubt, for things to come. The celebration continues on, though. The Mega Power's gonna pose another mega handshake, along with Liz in her bikini bottoms. Hulk gonna whip her skirt into the crowd. Talk about a keepsake, but it appears someone throws it back. What a fucking idiot. So Hogan gonna throw it out again, brother. And as promised, the Mega Powers together hoist Elizabeth high in the air, only for Macho Man to take over. Wise move, Hulk. The Mega Powers with the mega win send the fans home happy here tonight at the Garden at SummerSlam, as we wait to see what's next for everyone here involved. Gorilla Monsoon signing off. What a happening it's been. See you at the Survivor Series. Wow, what a night of action, guys. Oh, man. This was basically, though, the nail in the coffin, you'd have to think, for any type of real commentary job here for Superstar Graham. This was his big break, so to speak, and he did not do too well with it. And while not Art Donovan levels of bad, Graham had been around the business for nearly 20 years. No excuse to be this awful on commentary, especially after months of practice, mind you. However, the superstar will remain around, will remain on commentary for Random House shows through, I believe, January of '89, before he's finally let go. And while the superstar never saw it that way, I feel like Vince did everything he could to try and keep Superstar employed over the last couple of years. Now, let us go back to the bikini incident very quickly here, as DeMeltz has some comments about that. He says, "There was a complaint I have to address because I heard a lot about it. But while I understand it, I don't really find it valid." He goes on that this is the finish of the main event. A lot of people, particularly those with young daughters, were really upset because of Elizabeth as a role model taking her skirt off for the finish. I understand the point because it was a very sexist finish, to be sure, and also a very ludicrous one for other reasons. I understand the implication is that the most important thing a woman can do is take off her dress to get attention. However, they advertised that finish on TV the weekend of. That they did. Remember the interviews? They told you what they were going to do. Move for move. Elizabeth was going to take off her skirt, reveal a bikini, and the Mega Powers were going to hit their finishers. So if you didn't like it, you didn't have to order it, says DeMeltz. While even wrestling should have some limitations, it is not promoted in a manner in which its characters should be examined that closely for strict moralistic fiber. Dave and the old people I know said this without pointing to anyone specifically. I wish I could just point to people I know as a verifiable source, but even still, Dave Meltzer, he ain't wrong here. They told you what they were going to do. But the outrageous uproar of fans, it didn't start with the internet. It just wasn't as loud. And as we conclude this episode of The Grenade concludes SummerSlam 88, we're going to talk just quickly about the buy rate. Little confusion out there if you go look it up. With roughly 11 million homes open to availability for cable and pay-per-view back in 1988, SummerSlam did a 4.5% buy rate. Now, the Observer reports a buy rate of 400,000 buys, which is down about 18% from WrestleMania 4. Meltzer stating that had 485,000 buys. Now, I did a little more digging, and actual cable firms and business companies have actually listed the buys much higher, closer to 500,000 buys, which would also go in line with the 4.5% announced. So if you do basic math, Meltzer's wrong. And these cable firms, business companies, they tend to be accurate. Makes more sense. Now, I'm not saying SummerSlam did more than WrestleMania 4. I'm just saying maybe some facts and figures are wrong somewhere. And remember, guys, we're still in the infancy of pay-per-view. There were still many places here that didn't even offer cable yet, much less pay-per-view. And even if cable was offered, it wasn't as common to have it. And even if you did have cable, it still wasn't all that common to order pay-per-view. So overall, I'd call SummerSlam a mild success, perhaps a success as far as the buy rate goes. The WWF going to keep building that fan base, building that pay-per-view fan base specifically, as the story of the Mega Powers unfolds. It continues on, heading into our next pay-per-view, the Survivor Series, coming to you Thanksgiving night, 1988, once again in the Richfield Coliseum. Can't wait to get there, see what the Mega Powers and company are going to do. Where does this leave Andre? Where does this leave the $1 Million Man? We'll have to wait and see. And that'll wrap it up, guys. The entire SummerSlam pay-per-view in the books. Another definitive edition of a pay-per-view here, wrapped up in 1988 as part of the 1988 in the WWF project right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. And while not really a culmination of a bunch of feuds getting blown off or even continuing here by these matchups, lots of one-offs from open to close. We did get some memorable moments, including the Mega Powers over the Mega Bucks. Everybody's going to tell you it was Elizabeth's bikini that really got the job done there. Lots of great pictures to be had in the upcoming magazines. I promise you that. Also, the Ultimate Warrior begins his true ascension to his destiny, fulfilling his first stop on his way to the top with that rocket ship, the Warrior Man coming out and defeating the Honky Tonk Man for the IC Gold in less than 30 seconds. And you can never go wrong with a Demolition Hart Foundation match on tap. And though not clean, it was indeed tainted. We did get to see a pinfall in the tag team title match, which works for me, and even Jimmy Hart going to continue his feud there with his Hart Foundation by costing them the title match. Truthfully, I would have liked to see a little more focus on Demolition there actually than the Jimmy Hart storyline, but beggars can't be choosers. We did get the matchup. Jake Roberts scoring a clean victory with his DDT, sending the fans home happy with that one as well. And it appears the push of one Dino Bravo will continue on. All of that and so much more. Can't wait to see what happens coming out of the summer of 88, coming out of SummerSlam 1988. Want to once again thank everybody for listening, being a part of the Grenade, being a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Truly appreciate your support. It means a whole lot, guys. You have no idea. And again, I want to remind everybody to head over to Patreon. You guys can go watch the videocast version of SummerSlam 88, the original live broadcast version. Watch along with me and Gene Jackson as we cover it from beginning to end over at the VIP Superfan tier. And of course, also that all access tier you guys can purchase as part of patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Become a member now as spots are limited, guys. And don't forget to follow me on social media over on X at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow me at Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And be sure to subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So many great video clips and pictures over on my social media. Lots of great videos added all the time on YouTube as well. And don't forget to stop over to WrestleCopia.com. Nearly a dozen shows now going on as part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. From the Other Ship to Dave Dynasty's Wrestling Nostalgia, the Outdated Wrestling Hour with Bob Smith, Gene Jackson with the Retro Wrestling Review covering USWA 93 right now. But not just that, Gene also working alongside Doug Gilbert, Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, and now adding to the mix, Doug Gilbert going to be joined more often than not by somebody say something about Wildfire Tommy Rich, joining the crew over at Dangerous Conversations. Former NWA World Champion, former mega star as part of Georgia Championship Wrestling on WTBS, the Superstation. Former member of the FBI, it's Wildfire Tommy Rich, the Don himself, joining Doug Gilbert and Gene Jackson as part of the revamped Dangerous Conversations podcast. So happy to have both of those guys. And of course, don't forget the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop and so much more. Listen to it all right now. Check it out at WrestleCopia.com for all the latest. And with all of that said and out of the way, guys, we're going to return next time. It's going to be September of 1988 in the World Wrestling Federation. Going to look at all the September news and some show results as well. See where everything's headed coming out of the big pay-per-view. And also got some big news coming on the next episode of The Grenade. Going to talk about the future of this podcast, some plans we have with that. But until then, I encourage everybody to please continue to retweet, share, like, and most importantly, leave those 5-star reviews on your favorite podcast streaming platforms. But really, at the end of the day, just please continue to support the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. It really goes a long way in keeping us up and running, guys. I'm not lying. But for now, time to wrap it up. Ray Russell sang from pillar to post and coast to coast. You pull the pin, and I'll pick up the pieces right here on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. See you next week. Don't miss it. Be there!
She's not going down to the floor. Well, Jesse's in the hot now. Everybody's on the apron.
In the meantime, Jesse has stopped the count. There's no longer a count going on, Gorilla Monsoon.
Oh, look at that. What is this?
She took off her dress. She took off her skirt, Gorilla Monsoon. I don't know.
Elizabeth has shot everybody. Look at Jesse. He doesn't know what to do.
I don't believe her eyes.
Look at the $1 Million Man. He doesn't know what to do.
You don't know what to do.
Look at Andre. He's bewildered.
Everybody's shocked. Everybody's on their feet, Gorilla. Oh, yes, Elizabeth ever lovely.
What a move by Elizabeth.
If she ever loved me tonight, brother. Elizabeth.
This is
I
unreal.
can't believe it. Just pandemonium.
Look at this.
All right.
Savage nails the giant from behind. Heenan gets down. Hulkster slams $1 million man.
Yes, he did.
Look at this. He's got him set up. Bombs away, perhaps.
Come on, Macho.
Oh, the punch.